Ho, ho, ho.
Welcome to the Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers of Washington and its monthly
Merry
Author Showcase. I am your host, Peter Stockwell.
Ho, ho, ho.
First elf on this first Christmas show of Claw on the Bremerton Kitsap Access Television. And I think I hear Santa Claus.
ho.
You know, Father
Merry
Christmas,
Christmas.
St. Nick. You know, the guy
Ho,
with
ho,
all the
ho.
goodies
Merry
and the
Christmas.
presents, and he comes down the chimney and eats cookies.
Santa Claus is enough, that's fine.
Okay, we'll go with Santa Claus.
And I'm his partner in crime, Mark Miller, with additional help from a reindeer named Rudolph.
Hi, Santa Claus needs to cut down on the cookies and stuff. It took an hour longer to get the sleigh here.
I'm on a seafood diet. I see food, I eat it. But the fact we're having a windstorm here in Bremerton today doesn't help matters any.
Yeah, I almost fell out of the sleigh.
Go for it.
We have a bit of a different show today. This is Claw at BCAT's first Christmas show. Mark and I have been involved in this production now for over 2 years. So we thought it was time to have another fun show. And this particular day, Christmas, with all of its cultural and religious and social connections, seemed appropriate. We hope to highlight some of the more uplifting excerpts from the works of our authors and artists who are with us today.
We have readings from some of the works provided by past victims of our interviews.
The readings will help create a Christmas spirit of joy and companionship with friends and family.
Yes, well, no matter what your spiritual beliefs are, Christmas has become a time of brother and sisterhood, of spending time with your family and loved ones.
And of all reindeer and elves for getting double overtime so we can give presents to all of our family and loved ones.
Our first author is J.W. Capek. She is both a Claw member as well as an affiliate with the Blue Forge Publications.
Hello, I'm J.W. Capek, and I'm here to read you a story about Christmas in the desert, and it is a true story. I wouldn't say anything else. Once upon a time, many, many years ago, probably before you were born, Janice was a little girl living in Tucson, Arizona, with her mommy and daddy. Little brother Ricky wasn't born yet. Janice was 4 years old. That Christmas, Janice started to worry a little bit, as little girls often do, and Janice most of all. She worried a little bit because Tucson was not anything like the Christmas pictures on cards, on signs, or in the decorations in the stores. Tucson did not have any white snow. It had brown sand. There were no trees with mistletoe. There were cactuses. Big trucks brought layers of living Christmas trees to corner lots where they were sold for the holidays. The only snowmen around were made of tumbleweeds, stacked up in balls and sprayed painted white. Her really big worry was about Santa coming down the chimney to her house. Their house had no chimney, so how would Santa get into her house and all the other Christmases in her life? Janice tried to ask Santa when she saw him at a department store, but he just said, "Ho, ho, ho, I'll take care of it." When Janice asked her mother, Mommy said, "Oh, Santa knows all about chimneys, and he just comes in the front door if the house doesn't have one." But without snow, how can the reindeer pull Santa's sleigh? Santa worriedly asked her daddy. He said, "Oh, Santa has many ways of traveling around. The reindeer are just his favorite. They can rest while he travels other ways, and then they pick him up and they travel on through Christmas Eve." Then something very big to worry about pushed all the little worries out of her mind. Mommy and Daddy said that Grandma and Grandpa wanted Janice and her cousin Marilyn to stay at their house on Christmas Eve. The grown-ups all thought it would be fun to have Christmas morning with Grandma and Grandpa. Now, Janice was really worried, because how would Santa find them? Mommy and Daddy and Grandma and Grandpa all said, "Oh, Santa will find you." So it was that Christmas Eve, when Janice was still 4 years old, she was at Grandma and Grandpa's house, which also did not have a chimney. Her older cousin Marilyn, who was way older, didn't seem to worry about chimneys. So Janice worried about them for both of them. Hurry! Christmas Eve gets dark very early, and it was at twilight when Grandma asked Grandpa to walk down to their little store to get some milk for breakfast in the morning and for Santa's snack that night. So Grandpa walked to the store, holding hands with Marilyn on one side and Janice on the other. They were halfway to the store when who should they see coming out of a house but Santa Claus? Marilyn laughed to see him. Grandpa called out, "Hello, Santa!" and Janice hid behind Grandpa's leg. Little girls weren't supposed to see Santa delivering toys. They were supposed to be home fast asleep. He was dressed in his red suit. He had a bag over his shoulder, and he stopped when he saw them. "Ho, hello there," he called in a voice so happy, Janice had to peek around Grandpa to see him. "Merry Christmas to you," Santa called out. Marilyn and Grandpa returned his greeting, but Janice, for once in her short life, was silent. Then Santa opened the trunk of a red car in the driveway and put his bag inside. He got into the driver's side and waved at them again. It was just like Daddy said. Santa could travel other ways. Santa could go in and out front doors if the need arose. But what about little girls being home in bed? "Hurry, hurry, Grandpa," Janice said. "We've got to get home before Santa gets there. He will just finish the houses on this street, and when he gets to your house, he won't find me there." Now, Janice really had something to worry about. Grandpa told her it was all right, but she wanted to forget the milk and just go home. They got to the store with Janice pulling Grandpa's hand. They had to hurry. They took a different street home so that Santa wouldn't see Janice was still up and awake. When they got home, they told Grandma all about Santa, and Grandma was so tickled she smiled and smiled. The house smelled like fresh cookies and the scent of pine from the fir tree in the corner. Janice wanted to go to bed right then, but her grandparents told her she had to have some dinner first, and then they wanted to talk and tell stories and look at the pretty lights on their Christmas tree. Janice worried and worried. Finally, the grown-ups and Marilyn, who was way older, let Janice go to sleep. The next morning, very early, Janice woke up to find Mommy and Daddy and Grandma and Grandpa all waiting around the Christmas tree with lots of presents and toys. Santa did find them. He found them in Tucson, Arizona, at Grandma and Grandpa's house, without a chimney, without snow, and without reindeer. He found them with the people who loved them the most in the world. And Janice never had to worry about Christmas again. And it is a true story.
Thank you, Janice. That was very nice. Next, we have Amber Rainey, local author and filmmaker. She has a rather exciting tale involving special abilities, spirit of Christmas, and who is Santa Claus.
Hi, my name is Amber Rainey, and I have a novel out called Eternal Willow, available from Blue Forge Press on Amazon. I'm going to read a fan fiction I wrote in the world of Once Upon a Time. There, now he has to come, Henry exclaimed as he set a plate of Snow's homemade gingerbread cookies next to a glass of milk on the mantelpiece. Henry, you do know Santa is made up, Emma asked playfully. Henry just looked at his mother and rolled his eyes. Mom, you live in Storybrooke with half of the Disney characters and you still refuse to believe in Santa? Lad's got a point, love, Killian said with a grin. Don't encourage him, Emma groaned. Mom, just pretend for one night, Henry asked pleadingly. Emma nodded. Okay, just this once. Now off to bed since the Santa tracker just said they spotted him near Maine. Henry moaned and dragged his feet across the room. He gave Emma a quick kiss on the cheek and nodded at Killian. Good night, guys. Night, Killian said cheerily. Night, kid, Emma echoed. Killian chuckled and Emma eyed him suspiciously. He shrugged. Can't blame the boy for trying to get more presents, Killian said knowingly. Emma sighed. Yeah, well, he will be pretty disappointed when Santa did not bring him that puppy he wanted. Hopefully that PS4, Killian waited for Emma to nod. That gang contraption will soothe his wounded heart. I'm sure it will. Could you get it down from the shelf in the shed? And maybe bring in some more firewood, she asked with a pleading look in her eyes. Aye, Swan, be right back, he said and hopped up from the couch. Killian shrugged on his coat and went to fetch the firewood first. He piled a neat stack next to the door and then retrieved the package from its hiding place. He made sure to check that Henry's bedroom light was out before he re-entered the house with the gift. Killian placed it next to the tree and then turned to see that Emma had dozed off. He quickly brought in the firewood and set it in the holder next to the fireplace. After he shucked his coat, he warmed up his hands and then gently nudged Emma. I think it's time for bed for you, he whispered gently. Emma mumbled sleepily and then let Killian help her up the stairs and into her waiting bed. Killian left the room to lock up the house and turn off the lights. He stared at the tree for a moment and smiled. The Enchanted Forest had not really had Christmas celebrations. Sure, they celebrated something similar, but there was something more magical about this holiday in a land purported to be without it. The snow falling quietly outside, the tree lit with tiny twinkling lights, and the great socks hung over the mantel. Everyone seemed to be in good cheer, and it was quite infectious. Killian had even caught Grumpy singing merrily along with a Christmas carol the other morning at Granny's. Yes, this was a holiday he could get behind. Normally, Emma would extinguish the lights on the tree, but somehow Killian knew this one night he could leave them on. He stared at the plate of cookies, wondering if he was supposed to do something with them in order to convince the lad that his Santa Claus was indeed a real person. Killian shrugged and went into the kitchen to get Emma a glass of water for her bedside. He knew she hated getting out of the warm blankets when she awoke thirsty at night. He was just about to the top of the stairs when he heard a bump coming from the living area. Killian quietly set down the water glass and crept back down the stairs. He nearly fell over at the sight that greeted him. A man in a red suit, resembling that of the man in the movies Henry had shown him, was at the mantel eating a cookie. The bottom stair creaked and the man looked startled. For a moment, he and Killian locked eyes, neither knowing what to say to the other. Then the man winked and held up a finger to his lips in a shushing motion. Killian walked over to the man and looked him over. He was every bit the jolly old elf that he was portrayed as. He had rosy red cheeks, from the cold Killian imagined, and white as snow hair. A long beard and knowing, kind eyes completed the look. So you are real then, Killian asked in a whisper. You doubt the truest believer, Captain? Santa asked back conspiratorially. Killian scratched behind his ear. Cookie? Santa asked, offering the plate. Killian grabbed one and ate it as he watched Santa eat the last of his and drink the milk. Santa hummed. Out of all the cookies, I do love Snow's. She puts just that extra kick into them. Aye, Killian agreed. They are quite addictive. Santa chuckled. Now to work. Santa pulled out a package from the sack that sat next to him. It was a small package with blue paper decorated in silver snowflakes. Killian caught the name tag with Henry written on it in beautiful script. So not a puppy then, Killian asked, feeling some disappointment for Henry. Santa winked. Have you ever put a puppy in a box, Captain? Killian shook his head. No, I suppose that would not be practical. Indeed. Santa gathered his pack up and was turning to leave. Wait, Killian said hurriedly. Santa turned back around. Emma, do you have something for her? He asked sheepishly. Santa raised an eyebrow and then put a hand to his chin and rubbed it as if thinking hard. I believe I do, young man, Santa said as he pulled another package out of his pack. It was a simple, bright green package tied in a red bow. He placed it next to Henry's package. Santa straightened up and thought a moment. Thank you, Killian said, and gave the man a nod of appreciation. My pleasure. In truth, it was long overdue. And how about you? Santa asked. Killian shook his head and gestured to the upstairs where his new family slept. I have what I need. Santa searched Killian's face and nodded. He reached out a hand and Killian shook it firmly. It's been a pleasure, my boy, but I must run. I still have a long night ahead of me, he said with a wink and a twinkle in his eye. Killian nodded. Safe travels and stay warm. Always, Santa chuckled. Killian turned to go but thought of one more thing. When he turned back, the man had vanished. Killian smiled to himself and went up the stairs to snuggle with Emma. It had truly been a night of wonderment. The next morning, Killian and Emma were awoken to the sounds of Henry running into their room. Get up! He came! Henry exclaimed. I knew he would! Emma groaned as Killian sat up and rubbed the sleep from his eyes. Aye, lad, we're coming. Emma burrowed under the covers and Killian tickled her side. Come on, love, let's go see what Santa left. You know what he left. Can't we sleep a little longer? Emma's muffled voice came from the pillow she had thrown over her face. Nope, Killian said, popping the pea as he threw the blankets off them both. I hate you, Emma said sleepily and kissed him on the cheek. No, you don't, he said cheekily. Killian followed Emma out of the room and down the stairs where Henry was waiting next to the tree. Mom, can I open them? He asked excitedly. Sure, go ahead, kid, Emma said. Henry tore into the package containing the PS4 and whooped with excitement. I knew you would get it for me. Hold on, kid. Santa brought that, Emma said slyly, giving Killian a look. Psh, no, he didn't. I didn't ask Santa for a PS4, only you. Besides, this is the gift Santa left me, Henry said, holding up the blue package. What? Emma was confused. Henry tore open the package to reveal a dog collar and a bowl. He looked up with some confusion on his face when the doorbell rang. Killian went over to answer it, and just as he opened the door, a black lab puppy came bounding into the room and trounced over to Henry, licking his face. The puppy was all giant feet and floppy ears, and the giggling from Henry just urged it on even more. Emma stared in shock, first at Henry and the puppy, and then at Killian. Killian looked around outside and then shut the door, shaking his head and smiling. Killian, you didn't, Emma started. Killian shook his head. It wasn't me, it was Santa. Mom, can we please keep him, please? Henry asked. Emma looked at the boy and the dog. Sure, kid, but Killian, we are talking about this later. Killian held up his hands in surrender. Mom, open yours, Henry said, and handed her the bright green package. Emma looked at Killian again, who shook his head and muttered Santa. Emma said as she opened the package and then gasped. A tear fell down her cheek, and Killian was instantly concerned. Emma, he said with worry. She looked up at him and gave him a watery smile. How did you know? Know what? He asked. Emma held up her gift. It was a bright pink bear with a rainbow across its stomach. Killian stared at it in confusion and then looked at Emma expectantly. Killian, how did you know I wanted this bear? I never told anyone except... Emma's voice trailed off. Santa? Killian supplied helpfully. Emma nodded. When I was little, the Swan family had given me this bear. I loved it so much, but then they sent me back, and every year I would hope for this bear. One year, Santa came to the orphanage where I had been left for Christmas, and I asked him for it. But when Christmas came, I didn't get it. I got a new blanket. Then one of the younger children got the bear, and that is when I stopped believing in Santa. He was supposed to remember what every child wanted, and he couldn't bring me the only thing I'd asked for all those years. Emma's tears were running freely now. Killian wiped them away, and Henry jumped up to hug her. They all touched foreheads until the puppy nudged itself between them and licked at Emma's face. She laughed, and then they all did, as it was too contagious to contain. It seems Santa did have a lot to make up for, Killian said, and Emma looked at him questioningly. Killian took a breath and told her and Henry of his encounter with the man. Henry became even more excited and peppered Killian with questions until Emma reminded them that their guests would be there soon and they needed to get ready. Later that evening, Henry was playing with the puppy while Emma and Killian cleaned up. Killian went to take the trash out and stopped for a moment as new snow began to fall. He quite enjoyed the silence that fell as the snow blanketed the ground. He loved his family, but several hundred years of near solitude was a hard habit to break. He sat on the steps for a moment, enjoying being able to hear the happy sounds of Henry and the puppy while also watching the stars twinkle through the breaks in the snow clouds. There you are, Emma said, and joined him on the step. "Aye, just enjoying the peace for a moment," he said, and wrapped an arm around her. Something tells me it won't be quiet for a while with our new family member," Emma chuckled. Speaking of the puppy, he found a lost present under the tree. Emma held out a small package to him. It was wrapped in red paper with anchors decorating it. The name tag read Killian. Killian smiled. "You didn't have to get me another present, Emma." Emma shook her head. "Nope, not for me or Henry. I think Santa left you something, too." Killian's brow furrowed. "When?" "You tell me. Open it," she said. Killian opened the package and let out a shaky breath. Emma peered over his arm to see what lay in the paper. In it was a simple wooden frame with the word home written across the top in a nautical script and an anchor adorning the bottom. Inside the frame was a picture of Emma and Henry at a booth at Granny's, laughing as someone had taken the picture. Killian rubbed his finger over the image and smiled, his heart so full he felt it had burst. "It would seem that Mr. Claus knew exactly what I wanted most," Killian said. "A picture of us? Killian, I could have given you that any time you asked," she said with confusion. Killian shook his head. "For so long I wanted to have a place to call home, something I thought I would never obtain. But what I did not know was that home was not a place. My home is you and Henry, Emma. As long as I have you, I will always be home no matter where we are." Emma smiled a beautiful wide smile and placed her hands on either side of his cheeks. "I love you, Killian Jones. Merry Christmas." "And I you," he said, and kissed her. They went back inside and sat on the couch, watching Henry play with the puppy until both were fast asleep on the floor. Emma, too, dozed off, and Killian threw the blanket across her legs and stroked her hair. He watched his family sleeping in the dying light of the fire and smiled. Indeed, home was where the heart was, and his had finally found one.
Excellent read, Amber. Next, we have Darlene Panzera. She has a story about homespun gifts in contrast to store-bought.
Hi, I'm Darlene Panzera, and I'm going to read an excerpt of Homespun Christmas. It's a novella that's included in the book Christmas of Hope, available on Amazon, and it takes place in rural Pennsylvania. The house smelled wonderful. As Cassie stepped over the threshold, pungent scents of cinnamon and nutmeg greeted her nose, and it was easy to see why. Her younger sister Sarah and sister-in-law Eileen stood behind the kitchen counter decorating gingerbread men and an assortment of sugar cookies cut out into various shapes. Some of them had been frosted with thick, colorful icing. "Cassie," Sarah exclaimed, setting down a small container of candy sprinkles. "So glad you're here. You can help us with the cookies." Eileen's recipe won first place in the holiday contest at the community center, and the organizers asked if we could bake more to hand out to the people picking up gifts at the Giving Tree event this afternoon. Eileen's recipe won first place. Cassie forced a smile as she took off her coat and hung it on one of the wooden pegs lining the wall by the entrance. "That's wonderful." "Of course, if you want to help, you'll have to change out of those fancy clothes," Eileen said, eyeing her pearl white cashmere sweater and navy blue slacks. "And oh dear, watch out for the kids." Before Cassie could blink, her 5-year-old niece and 7-year-old nephew chased each other around the counter, their fingers coated with what looked to be bright red and green frosting, and they ran straight into her arms, nearly knocking her over. "Aunt Cass," Amber exclaimed, tugging on her sleeve and slathering the sugary mess all over her. "Guess what? I get to be an angel in the church play." "I'm going to be a shepherd," Timmy Jr. informed her, grabbing her other arm. Cassie was excited to see them, too. She just wished they'd wash their hands first. Now she really would have to change her clothes, and her father and brother hadn't even seen her yet. "Both of you to the sink right now," Eileen commanded the children. Then she gave Cassie an apologetic look. "Sorry about your sweater. Do you want me to put it in the wash?" Cassie shook her head. Cashmere was special and needed to be treated as such. "No thanks, I'll take care of it." Great. Now she'd have to hand wash the thing with lukewarm water and roll it up in a towel to dry so it wouldn't lose its shape. Served her right for wanting to show off by wearing something expensive. Eileen dried her children's wet hands with a dishcloth and teased Sarah. "See what you have to look forward to?" Sarah grinned and patted her bulging stomach. "The doctor says the baby can come any day." "Hopefully it comes before Christmas Eve," Cassie's mother said, hanging up the phone. Sarah is playing the role of Mary in the live nativity play at church, and her baby is supposed to play the part of baby Jesus if it arrives on time. Of course, Sarah would get the leading role. Her popular blonde-haired, blue-eyed younger sister had won many local beauty queen pageants, was president of several different clubs, and had her own column in the town newspaper. Who wouldn't pick her? "We don't know if the baby is a boy or a girl," Sarah told Cassie with a wink, "but I think Mom's hoping for a boy so it doesn't mess up her plans. She's in charge of the play." Their mother laughed. "I'll be happy no matter what. Even if it is a girl, the baby can still play the part of baby Jesus. We all know who the baby is supposed to be." "Your mother has a part for you too," Eileen said, giving Cassie a broad grin. Cassie's heart leapt in her chest, and she looked at her mother with surprise. "You do?" Her mother finally gave her that hug she'd been waiting for and nodded. "We figured you might like to dress like one of the wise men and lead a camel." But Cassie frowned. "We don't have any camels." "The llamas," her mother exclaimed. "We're using the llamas as camels." "Great," Cassie said, trying to hide her disappointment. She'd always dreamed of being on stage, just not with the llamas, who were sometimes known to spit. But she'd come home determined not to let anything ruin this Christmas, so she swallowed hard and told her mother, "I'd love to be in the play." "Your brother is also going to be one of the wise men, along with his friend Logan Whitaker," Cassie's mom continued. "You can stand next to him. Logan is quite a fine catch." "I have a boyfriend," Cassie reminded her. "He didn't come with you?" her mother asked, raising her brow. "No, not this time." Her mother's mouth curved up into a grin, and she wiggled her brows. "Like I said, Logan Whitaker is a fine catch." Cassie rolled her eyes. Her parents had married young, when they were just 20. Cassie's older brother had also married when he was in his 20s. And an inexplicable twist of fate, her younger sister had married in her 20s too. But here she was, the awkward middle child who was almost 30, and she still hadn't married. "Ned Doherty is also a fine catch," Cassie said defensively. "He's the best ad designer in the agency with a client list a mile long. He's handsome, he's got money, and he just helped me get a big promotion at work." "Did you get your own office?" her mother asked. Cassie shook her head. "No, but I got a raise, and oh, just wait until you see what I bought Dad for Christmas. He's going to be so surprised." Her mother hesitated. "You bought your father a present?" "Of course," Cassie said, hardly able to contain her excitement. "All my Christmas gifts for everyone are still in the car. But," she broke off as she watched her mother exchange a worried glance with both Sarah and Eileen. Then her mother frowned. "I told you that we were only going to exchange handmade gifts this year." The disappointment in her mother's voice twisted her gut. Cassie stared at her and fought valiantly to keep her own disappointment at bay. "I thought you were joking. We always buy each other Christmas presents." "That's not true," her sister reminded her. "Remember the year Grandma knitted us those matching sweaters? And the time Sarah gave us handmade llama ornaments," Eileen added, "and your mother handed out pints of her award-winning raspberry jam?" "Don't forget the wooden candlestick holders your brother carved last Christmas," Mom said with a nod, "and the planter boxes and wind chimes your father created for everyone." "Well, okay, yes, we've had some handmade gifts over the years," Cassie admitted, her face growing hot. "But we figured with your father and I going into semi-retirement, Sarah and Rick's baby on the way, and Tim and Eileen and their kids moving into a new house," her mother continued, "that it would be best to cut expenses this year. And certainly with your promotion, fancy clothes, and shiny new car, you don't need anything." Cassie raised her brows. "You saw my new car? What did you think?" "It must have cost a fortune," her mother said, pursing her lips. "Enough money to feed an entire community for a full year." Cassie's shoulders slumped, not the response she had been looking for. "Can you get your money back?" her mother asked, her expression hopeful. "For the car? No. The gifts? Yes," Cassie told her. "I kept all the receipts, and I can take them back to the store after the holidays." Her mother's face brightened and she clapped her hands. "Crisis averted. Now we can all have a festive, homespun Christmas, just like we wanted." "Except I'm not like the rest of you," Cassie said, her throat painfully tight as she forced out the admission. "What will I do for gifts? I'm not very good at making crafts. I always mess up when I try to bake, and I don't know how to can jam, sew, spin wool, or build things with wood." Her stomach turned queasy as she envisioned everyone opening gifts on Christmas morning that would once again showcase their talents. "What can I do?" Her mother smiled. "I'm sure you will come up with something. You might get some ideas if you come help me distribute gifts at the community center this afternoon," her brother said, with a welcoming grin. He and their father came through the front door and carried a fresh-cut pine scented tree into the house. "Many of the items brought in for the poor are handmade." "I don't know, Tim," Cassie said, shooting him a pleading look to try to help him understand her dilemma. Even if I do find some ideas for handmade Christmas presents, I still have to make them. You still have plenty of time, her mother assured her. Her father, who always believed in the positive, gave her a firm nod and agreed. You've got a whole week. And the story continues. Cassie has to find a way to make homemade Christmas presents for everyone in her family by Christmas, and with the help of newcomer, handsome Logan Whitaker.
Nice. That's a 5 ho 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 rating from Santa.
Ho, ho, ho rating?
Never mind. I think Senior Elf Peter has a story he would like to read.
Hi, Peter Stockwell, our dear resident elf. I am going to read The Legend of the Poinsettia, as retold and illustrated by Tomé de Paola. Lucidia lived in a small village, high up in the mountains of Mexico, with her mama, her papa, and her younger brother and sister, Paco and Lupe. Papa worked in the fields with their burro, Pepito. Every evening, Lucida fed Pepito, gave him fresh water, and filled his stall with clean straw. At home, Lucida helped Mama clean their casita, their little house, and pat out tortillas for their meals. She took care of Paco and Lupe, and each evening they went to the shrine of the Virgin Guadalupe near the front gate to see if fresh candles were needed. But every day was not work. On Sundays, the family went to San Gabriel in the square where Padre Alvarez said the Mass. And all through the year there were fiestas and holy days, which always began with a procession that wound through the village and ended at San Gabriel. One day, close to Christmas, La Navidad, Padre Alvarez came to their casita. "Ah, Señora Martinez, buenos dias, good day." Padre Alvarez said, "I am here to ask you about the blanket which covers the figure of the baby Jesus in the Christmas procession. We have used the same one for so many years that it is almost worn out. Because your weaving is so fine, I have come to ask if you would make a new one." "Me padre," Lucida's mother said, "I would be honored, and Lucida will help me." On Saturday, Lucida and Mama went to the market to buy the wool for the blanket. They chose the finest yarn they could find. At home, Lucida helped Mama dye the wool the colors of the rainbow. "Those colors will shine throughout the church," Papa said as he watched Lucida and Mama string the yarn on the loom. As Christmas drew closer, everyone in the village was busy. All the mamas were making gifts to place at the manger of the baby Jesus in the church. The papas worked together, putting up the manger scene in San Gabriel. Lucida and the other children went to the church for singing practice for the Christmas Eve procession, when everyone would walk to San Gabriel, singing and carrying candles. Once inside, Padre Alvarez would lay the figure of the baby Jesus in the manger, and the villagers would go up and place their gifts around it. "Our gift will be the blanket for the baby Jesus," Lucida told her friends. "I am helping Mama weave it." One afternoon, a few days before Christmas Eve, Lucida and the children were singing in the church when Senora Gomez came hurrying in. "Lucida, you must come home. Your Mama is sick, and your Papa has taken her down to the town to see the doctor. You must take care of your brother and sister until your Papa returns tonight." Lucida was frightened. Mama had never been sick before. When she got home, Paco and Lupe were crying. They were frightened too. Lucida tried to comfort them. She made some food and sat down to wait for Papa. That evening, Papa came in looking tired and worried. He drew Lucita close and said, "Lucita, mi niña, your mama is ill. Your aunt, Tia Carmen, will take care of Mama until she is well. But I must go back and stay with Mama until I can bring her home. But it won't be until after Christmas. Senora Gomez will take care of you and Paco and Lupe while I am gone. She will come for you tomorrow." The next afternoon, Lucita overheard two women talking. "Lucita's mama is ill. She won't be able to finish the blanket for the procession. Isn't it a shame?" "See," the other woman said, "we are all so disappointed. Padre Alvarez will have to use the old worn-out one." When Lucita went home to feed Pepito and get clothes for Paco, Lupe, and herself, she looked at the unfinished blanket on the loom. "Perhaps I can finish it," she thought. But when she sat down and tried to weave, the yarn got tangled. The more she tried to untangle it, the worse it got. It was no use. She could never finish it by herself. She took the unfinished blanket to Senora Gomez. "Oh, Lucida, it's so tangled. There isn't time for me to fix it," Senora Gomez told her. "Tomorrow is Christmas Eve." Lucida started to cry. It was her fault. The blanket was ruined. Her family wouldn't have a gift to place at the manger of the baby Jesus. "Don't worry, Lucida. We will all go to the procession together." Lucida didn't say anything, but in her heart she felt that she had ruined Christmas. "Come, Paco, come, Lupe. It is time to go to the procession," Senora Gomez called on Christmas Eve. "Where is Lucinda?" She was nowhere to be found. Lucida was hiding. From the shadows, Lucida watched everyone gather for the procession. The candles were lit, the singing began, and the villagers walked to San Gabriel, carrying gifts to place at the manger. Lucida walked along in the darkness and watched the procession go into the church, followed by Padre Alvarez carrying the baby Jesus. "Little girl, are you Lucida?" An old woman stood in the shadows nearby. "See," Lucida answered, wondering who she was. "I have a message for you. Your mama is going to be fine, and your papa will bring her home soon, so you don't have to worry. Go now into the church and celebrate Christmas with the others. Paco and Lupe are waiting for you." I can't," Lucida told her. "I don't have a gift for the baby Jesus. Mama and I were weaving a beautiful blanket, but I couldn't finish it. I tried, but I only tangled it all up." "Ah, Lucita, any gift is beautiful because it is given," the old woman told her. "Whatever you give, the baby Jesus will love because it comes from you." "But what can I give now?" Lucida said, looking around. A patch of tall green weeds grew in a tangle nearby. Lucida rushed over and picked an armful. Do you think these will be all right?" Lucida turned to ask the old woman. But she was gone. Lucida walked into the church. It was blazing with candlelight, and the children were singing as she walked quietly down the aisle with her bundle of green weeds in her arms. "What is Lucita carrying?" a woman whispered. "Why, she's bringing weeds into the church," another one murmured. Lucida reached the manger scene. She placed the green weeds around the table. Then she lowered her head and prayed. A hush fell over the church. Voices began to whisper, "Look! Look at the weeds!" Lucida opened her eyes and looked up. Each weed was tipped with a flaming red star. The manger glowed and shimmered as if lit by 100 candles. When everyone went outside after Mass, all the clumps of tall green weeds throughout the town were shining red stars. Lucida's simple gift had indeed become beautiful. And every Christmas to this day, the red stars shine on the top of green branches in Mexico. The people call the plants La Flor de Nochebuena, the flower of the Holy Night, the poinsettia.
Excellent work. Do you have anything to add, Peter?
Well, I was going to ask our resident reindeer here, do you have anything to pass on about Christmas spirit?
I sure do. Santa, you should tell him about all the adventures at North America Defense Command. And I had a relative that worked there one time up in Canada, and there's a story there.
Okay. Ah, yes, nothing like dodging F-15s over Alaska. There I was, 40,000 feet, flat on my back. No fooling, jinking and janking. Our IFF wasn't working, so I guess they thought I was a Russian bear bomber. I tell you, do I look like a bear?
Well,
You look like a bear who's been stuffed for hibernation, and you're kind of grumpy like one, too.
Everyone's a comedian.
thank you for that excellent piece of information. Now, I believe Santa has an extra particular literary item that he wants to present.
The Spirit of Christmas. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were all nestled, all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mama in her kerchief, and I in my cap, had settled our brains for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there rose such a clatter, I sprang from the bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new-fallen snow gave the luster of midday to objects below. When what to my wondering eyes would appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer, with a little old driver as so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles, his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, Donder and Blixen, to the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away, dash away, dash away all. It's dry leaves before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle, mount to the sky. So up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with a sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too. And then in a twinkling I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. And a bundle of toys was flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. And his eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples how merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard of his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke, it circled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him, in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger alongside his nose, giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away all they flew, like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim, ere he drove out of sight, "Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night."
That's a classic poem which captures the spirit of Christmas.
Yes, and all of us in the Bremerton Kitsap Access television broadcast area should remember that the true meaning of Christmas involves giving, brotherhood and sisterhood, sharing with family and friends whenever possible.
Reaching out also to the members of our armed forces who are all far away and they can't be with their families. Also for all of our first responders who serve 365 days a year, and that includes Christmas Day.
And remember how this season should be of love, trust, and goodwill to all.
Especially the trust part. Please trust that Santa in his red suit is not a burglar.
We at CLAW have a mission statement to help authors and artists become known to the public, to expose their artistic endeavors to the residents of Kitsap County and to the surrounding area and the world. We plan to continue this endeavor as long as the BCAT staff and the viewing public support us.
CLAW exists for the artists, authors, to help with marketing, distribution, and publicity. We meet the first and third Wednesdays of every month at the Sparrow's Pizza on Kitsap Way in Bremerton, Washington at 7 p.m. All are welcome. Also, for filmmakers and actors, we have a related group, Kitsap Peninsula Filmmakers, which meets the second Tuesday of every month at the Family Pancake House on Wheaton Way in Bremerton, Washington. Everyone is welcome.
But we are not the only group out there. There are many independent writers and critique groups in Western Washington.
Vincent at 724 Studios on 724 Bay Street in Port Orchard, Washington, also showcases painters, as well as has local authors doing readings in his establishment.
And we just finished an independent author showcase in the Kitsap Mall on November 24th, thanks to the assistance of the mall people, Barnes & Noble, and Blue Forge Press. Some 34 authors from around Western Washington sold their books and other artistic endeavors to all who came on that 24th day of November, from 9 o'clock until 9 o'clock at night. CLAW is planning on similar events in the future to support local authors and writers. This program will be rebroadcast nearer to Christmas in the Bremerton Kitsap Access television viewing area. Check with the BCAT schedule online for upcoming shows. We wish to thank the BCAT personnel, for without them, none of this is possible. And of course, you, the viewing public. We hope you will continue to view us in the next coming year.
Ho,
Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas. And remember the milk and cookies.
Good day, and have a delightful night, great vacation through Christmas, and have a happy new year.